My son Jason was born with a congenital heart condition that required surgery. The doctors told me it would cost $42,000, and our insurance refused to cover it. For 3 years I worked multiple jobs, saving every penny I could while watching my 7-year-old son grow weaker each day. Finally, I had the money. The surgery was scheduled. Then my cousin Jessica lost her job and needed a place to stay. I welcomed her into our home without hesitation. How could I have known she would steal everything I had saved for my son? Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever trusted someone who betrayed you. Trust me, what my cousin did next will shock you. Life has never been easy since I lost my wife during childbirth. The day Jason came into this world was both the happiest and most devastating day of my life. Sarah, my high school sweetheart and wife of 5 years, developed complications during delivery. The doctors tried everything they could, but I still remember the grim face of the surgeon as he told me the news. I had become a father and a widower on the same day. From that moment on, it was just Jason and me against the world. I learned to be both mother and father to him, figuring out everything from diaper changes to bedtime stories through endless Google searches and parenting books. We developed our own little routines and traditions. Saturday mornings were for pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Sunday afternoons were for trips to the park, where Jason would collect colorful leaves and interesting rocks. When Jason was about 4 years old, I noticed he would get unusually tired after playing. His lips would sometimes turn slightly blue, and he would need to rest more than other children his age. Concerned, I took him to our family doctor, who referred us to a pediatric cardiologist. The diagnosis hit me like a truck. Jason had a congenital heart defect that had gone undetected until now. The cardiologist explained that Jason had a ventricular septal defect, a hole between the lower chambers of his heart that was causing oxygenated and deoxygenated blood to mix. While they had initially hoped to manage it with medication, his latest tests showed the condition was worsening. Surgery had become necessary and soon. When I asked about the cost, the number stunned me: $42,000. Our insurance company refused to cover it, citing some technicality about pre-existing conditions. I argued with them for weeks, made appeals, but nothing changed. They simply would not pay. I remember sitting in my car in the hospital parking lot that day, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, fighting back tears of frustration and fear. But I made a decision then, and nothing would stop me from saving my son. I kept my day job as an accountant at a small local firm, but started driving for Uber at night after Jason went to sleep. On weekends, I picked up shifts at a restaurant downtown. My parents helped watch Jason when they could, but they were getting older and lived an hour away, so I often had to rely on babysitters, which ate into my savings. For 3 long years, I barely slept more than 4 hours a night. I missed school events and parent-teacher conferences. I was exhausted all the time, but watching my savings account grow toward that $42,000 goal kept me going. Jason would ask why I was always working, and I would tell him I was saving for something special for us. He never complained, even as his condition gradually worsened. Then, just as I reached my goal, and the surgery was scheduled for the following month, my cousin Jessica called. We had been close growing up, almost like siblings. She had always been the adventurous one, moving to New York to work in finance while I stayed in our hometown. Now she told me she had lost her job in a company downsizing and needed a place to stay until she found something new. I did not hesitate to offer her our spare bedroom. Having Jessica around might even be good for Jason, I thought. She could help watch him when I was working, and he would have someone else to talk to besides his perpetually exhausted father. The day Jessica arrived, I welcomed her with open arms. She looked the same as I remembered, though perhaps a bit more polished from her years in the big city. Her designer clothes and perfectly manicured nails spoke of the successful life she had built before losing her job. That first night, as Jason slept, Jessica and I stayed up late catching up over glasses of wine. I told her about Jason's condition, the upcoming surgery, and how I had been saving for 3 years. "That is amazing, Gustav," she said, her eyes wide, with what I thought was admiration. $42,000. You must have worked yourself to the bone. I would do anything for him. I replied simply. Where do you keep that kind of money, she asked. Not in a bank, I hope. Their fees would eat away at it. Looking back, I should have recognized this question for the red flag it was. But at the time, I was just grateful to have someone to talk to, someone who seemed to care. Most of it is in a safety deposit box at the bank, I said. But I brought it home last week since the surgery is coming up soon. It is in the safe in my closet. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. Smart. Banks cannot always be trusted. Over the next 2 weeks, Jessica seamlessly integrated herself into our lives. She cooked dinner on nights when I worked late. She helped Jason with his homework and played board games with him. She even started taking him to his doctor appointments so I could pick up extra shifts. Jason adored her. Cousin Jessica knows all the best card tricks, Dad, he would tell me excitedly. Or Cousin Jessica says when I get better, she will teach me how to skateboard. I noticed small changes in her behavior. She started asking more questions about the surgery, about when exactly the hospital needed the payment, about whether I had considered investing the money instead. Again, I dismissed these as simple curiosity or concern. Then, there were the shopping bags that started appearing in her room, brand names I recognized as expensive. When I asked about them, she said they were just retail therapy to help with the stress of job hunting. I got a small severance package, she explained with a laugh. Might as well enjoy it before it is gone, right? I nodded, though. Something about her explanation did not sit right with me. Still, I trusted her. She was family after all. The day everything fell apart was exactly 2 weeks before Jason's scheduled surgery. I had been working a double shift at the restaurant but managed to get off early when another server asked to pick up extra hours. Arriving home around 6 in the evening instead of midnight, I was looking forward to spending some rare quality time with Jason. The house was quiet when I entered. Hello, Jason, Jessica. I called out, but received no answer. I headed to my bedroom to change out of my work clothes and noticed immediately that something was wrong. The door to my closet was ajar, and the safe inside was open. My heart began to race as I rushed over. The safe was completely empty. All $42,000, the money I had spent 3 years of my life earning, was gone. Jason, I shouted, panic rising in my throat as I ran through the house. I found him in his room playing with his action figures. Dad, you are home early, he exclaimed, his face lighting up. Where is Jessica? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jason shrugged. She left a while ago. She had a big suitcase with her. She said to tell you she went to Paris and will bring me back a cool present. My blood ran cold. I immediately tried calling Jessica's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent text after text, growing increasingly desperate. Finally, I checked her social media accounts. There it was on Instagram, posted just an hour earlier, a selfie of Jessica at the airport, designer sunglasses perched on her nose with the caption number, Paris here I come, number treating myself, number first class. I felt sick to my stomach. With shaking hands, I sent her a direct message. Jessica, the money you took was for Jason's surgery. Please. He needs it to live. After what seemed like an eternity, she replied, he will be fine. Kids heal fast. I needed this trip for my mental health after everything I have been through. Do not be so dramatic. I stared at the screen in disbelief. How could she be so callous? This was not just money, this was my son's life. I immediately called the police and reported the theft. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic but not hopeful. You willingly told her where the money was, he asked. Yes. But that does not mean she had permission to take it, I argued. Did she force the safe open, or did she know the combination? I hesitated. She must have figured it out. It is Jason's birthday. The officer sighed. This makes it complicated. It becomes a civil matter rather than criminal when there is no clear breaking and entering. And if she has already left the country. Next, I called the hospital, explaining the situation and begging for more time to come up with the money. The administrator was sympathetic but firm. Mr. Wagner, I understand your situation, but we have already scheduled the surgical team and equipment. If we do not receive payment 3 days before the procedure as agreed, we will have to give the slot to another patient. And based on your son's last evaluation, I would not recommend delaying this surgery any longer than absolutely necessary. That night, after Jason went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table and broke down completely. How could I have been so naive? How could Jessica betray us like this? And most importantly, what was I going to do now? I contacted every member of Jessica's family I could think of. Her parents were retired and living on a fixed income. They had no means to help. Her brother was sympathetic, but claimed he was barely making ends meet himself. No one seemed willing or able to hold Jessica accountable. Over the next few days, I tried everything I could think of. I applied for emergency loans but was denied due to the amount and my already stretched finances. I reached out to charities, but their application processes would take weeks. I even considered selling my car and everything of value in my home, but it would not come close to the amount needed. Meanwhile, Jason's condition was deteriorating. He was more tired than usual, his appetite diminished. One night, 5 days after Jessica had disappeared with our money, I found him sitting on the edge of his bed, breathing heavily. "Dad, my chest feels funny," he said, his voice small and frightened. I rushed him to the emergency room, where they admitted him immediately. The doctor who examined him looked grave. "The strain on his heart is increasing," she explained. "We need to proceed with the surgery as soon as possible. Any further delay could be dangerous." As I sat beside Jason's hospital bed that night, watching his small chest rise and fall with each labored breath, I felt a rage I had never experienced before. I opened Instagram again and saw that Jessica was still posting pictures of the Eiffel Tower, of expensive meals, of a hotel room that probably cost more per night than I made in a week. Her most recent post showed her holding up a shopping bag from a luxury store, caption reading, "Treating myself after years of hard work. I deserve this." Then a notification popped up, a direct message from Jessica. My hands shook as I opened it. "Stop harassing me. You always had it easier than me. I deserve this. You will figure something out, you always do." In that moment, something inside me changed. I had been beaten down by life again, and again losing my wife, Jason's illness, years of exhausting work, and now this ultimate betrayal. But I would not let my son pay the price for my mistakes. I would not give up. I barely slept that night, sitting beside Jason's hospital bed, my mind racing with possibilities. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. First, I created a fundraising page online. I hated the idea of publicly sharing our personal tragedy, but Jason's life was more important than my pride. I wrote a detailed account of our situation, including how my cousin had stolen the money meant for his surgery. I included pictures of Jason, medical documents confirming his condition, and proof of the money I had saved over the years. Next, I reached out to local news stations and newspapers. Most ignored my emails and calls. But one small local news outlet agreed to interview me. The young reporter Alicia was moved by our story and promised to help any way she could. "People need to hear about this," she said firmly, "and they need to know about your cousin too." Then I remembered Frank, a friend from college who had become a lawyer. We had fallen out of touch over the years, but I found him on social media and sent a desperate message explaining the situation. To my surprise, he responded within hours. "Gustav, this is terrible. I specialize in family law now, but I have contacts who can help. Let me make some calls. And do not worry about fees right now. We will figure that out later." While Jason slept in his hospital bed, I worked tirelessly on my phone, responding to comments on the fundraising page, coordinating with Frank, and providing information to Alicia for her story. I also kept an eye on Jessica's social media, documenting everything she posted as potential evidence. The response to our fundraising page was slow at first. A few friends and colleagues donated small amounts, but we were still far from our goal. Then, 2 days after I created it, Alicia's story aired on the local news and was picked up by their website. The headline was "Powerful Local Fathers Race Against Time After Cousin Steals Life-Saving Surgery Money." The story included interviews with me, Jason's doctor, confirming the urgency of his condition, and even screenshots of Jessica's social media posts showing her spending spree in Paris. Within hours, the story went viral. Our fundraising page views skyrocketed. Donations began pouring in not just from locals but from people across the country and even internationally. Messages of support filled my inbox, sending love to little Jason, praying for your family, do not lose hope. The story caught the attention of larger news outlets, and soon Jessica's name and face were being shared widely. People began tagging her in posts about the story, leaving comments on her Instagram photos and messaging her directly. Frank called with an update. We have enough evidence to file charges. And since she crossed state lines and left the country with the stolen money, it could potentially become a federal case. I have also filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her accounts. 3 days after our story went public, I received a notification that our fundraising goal had not only been met, but exceeded. The total now stood at $75,000, nearly twice what we needed for Jason's surgery. I broke down in tears, right there in the hospital cafeteria, overwhelmed by the generosity of strangers. That same afternoon, a representative from a Children's Heart Foundation contacted me. They had heard Jason's story and wanted to help cover any additional expenses related to his care, including medications, follow-up appointments, and even counseling services for both of us. The hospital administrator, who had been so firm about payment deadlines, now assured me that Jason's surgery would proceed as scheduled. The surgical team had even been following the story and offered to waive some of their fees. While all this was happening, Jessica was experiencing a very different kind of public attention. Her social media accounts were flooded with messages condemning her actions. Former colleagues publicly distanced themselves from her. The luxury hotel where she was staying reportedly asked her to leave after receiving numerous calls about her. Then came the news that French authorities had detained Jessica. Apparently, in her rush to leave the country, she had used fraudulent means to obtain cash advances on credit cards that were not hers. Combined with the emerging story about the stolen surgery money, she was now facing serious legal troubles both in France and back home. Frank forwarded me a message he had received from a French attorney representing Jessica. My client wishes to make amends. She recognizes the severity of her actions and is prepared to return all remaining funds immediately. The next day, Jessica texted me directly, I am sorry. I have made a terrible mistake. It was too little too late. I did not respond. My focus was entirely on Jason and his upcoming surgery. The day of Jason's surgery was the longest of my life. I handed over the payment to the hospital with a sense of unreality. After everything we had been through, it seemed impossible that we had made it here, that Jason would finally get the help he needed. As they wheeled him into the operating room, he looked so small and vulnerable in the hospital bed. His face was pale, but he managed a brave smile for me. You will be right here when I wake up, right, Dad? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. I promise, buddy. I am not going anywhere. I squeezed his hand, trying to convey all my love and strength to him. The surgery was scheduled to take 6 hours. I spent that time pacing the waiting room, checking my phone for updates from Frank about the legal proceedings against Jessica and responding to well-wishers on our fundraising page. The outpouring of support continued to amaze me. 5 hours into the surgery, the door to the waiting room opened. I looked up, expecting to see a nurse or doctor, but instead found myself face to face with Jessica. She looked nothing like the confident, stylish woman who had arrived at our home a month ago. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes rumpled, and her eyes red from crying. In her hands, she clutched a large envelope and what appeared to be a designer handbag with the tag still on it. Gustav, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I am probably the last person you want to see right now. I stood frozen, a storm of emotions raging inside me. Anger, betrayal, disgust, and underneath it, all a bone-deep exhaustion. What are you doing here? I finally managed to ask. I came to give this back. She held out the envelope. It is $12,000. It is all I have left. The rest. I spent it. But I brought this too. She held up the handbag. It cost almost $20,000. You can sell it. I stared at her in disbelief. You stole $42,000 from a sick child. Your own family. And you come back with this. You think this makes anything right? Jessica flinched as if I had struck her. No, I know it does not. Nothing will. I do not know what happened to me, Gustav. When I saw all that money, something just snapped. I have been struggling for so long, losing my job, my apartment in New York, and then seeing you with this house with all that cash. I worked 3 jobs for 3 years to save that money, I said, my voice rising. While caring for a sick child, after losing my wife, do not talk to me about struggling. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know. You are right. What I did is unforgivable. When I was in Paris at first, it felt amazing. Like I was finally getting what I deserved. But then I saw the news stories, the social media posts. I saw Jason's face and remembered how he looked up to me. The reality of what I had done hit me, and I hate myself, Gustave. I will turn myself in to the police. I will do whatever it takes to make this right. I was saved from responding by the arrival of Jason's surgeon. I turned away from Jessica immediately. Mr. Wagner, the surgeon said, smiling behind his mask. The surgery was successful. We were able to repair the ventricular septal defect completely. Jason's heart is already showing improved function. Relief washed over me like a physical force. Can I see him? I asked. He is in recovery now. A nurse will come get you shortly. When I turned back, Jessica was still standing there, tears streaming down her face. The sight of her no longer filled me with rage, only a deep, sad weariness. Leave the money and the bag with the hospital billing department, I said quietly. Then, go turn yourself in, like you said you would. I cannot deal with you right now. My son needs me. Jessica nodded, wiping at her tears. I am truly sorry, Gustave. I know those words mean nothing, but they are true. I watched her walk away, shoulders hunched in defeat. I felt no satisfaction, only relief that this chapter was ending, and I could focus on what really mattered: Jason's recovery. When I finally got to see Jason in the recovery room, the sight of him connected to various monitors and tubes was frightening, but the steady beeping of the heart monitor reassured me. The nurse explained that everything was looking good, and Jason would likely wake up within an hour or two. I sat beside his bed, holding his small hand in mine. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to truly rest. 6 months later, life had changed dramatically for us. Jason had recovered from surgery with the resilience only children seem to possess. Within weeks, he was back to his normal energy levels, and his doctor was amazed by his progress. For the first time in his life, his heart was functioning normally. Jessica had faced the consequences of her actions. With Frank's help, I had pressed charges, and she had pleaded guilty to theft and fraud. The judge had sentenced her to 2 years of probation community service at the Children's Hospital and full restitution of the stolen funds. I had not seen or spoken to her since that day in the hospital waiting room. The extra money from the fundraiser had been used to establish a small foundation to help other families facing similar situations, covering costs that insurance would not. Working with the Children's Heart Foundation that had helped us, we had already assisted 3 families with their children's surgeries. I had found a better job with more regular hours, allowing me to spend more time with Jason. The company had heard our story and reached out specifically to offer me a position that would accommodate my needs as a single parent. One sunny afternoon, as Jason and I played catch in our backyard, something he had never been able to do before his surgery, he asked me a question that caught me off guard. Dad, do you ever think about cousin Jessica? I paused before answering, watching my son's face. There was no anger or fear there, only curiosity. Sometimes, I admitted. Do you hate her for what she did? I considered this carefully. I was very angry with her for a long time. What she did was wrong, and it hurt us both. But hate takes a lot of energy, Jason. Energy I would rather spend on you, on building our life together. Jason nodded thoughtfully, tossing the ball back to me. I think I understand. It is like when Tommy broke my favorite action figure at school. I was really mad, but staying mad just made me feel bad all the time. I smiled at my son's simple wisdom. That is exactly right. Maybe someday we could write her a letter, Jason suggested. Not to say it was okay, but just to let her know, we are doing good now. Looking at my son healthy and happy in the afternoon sun, I felt a weight lift from my heart. Maybe someday, I agreed. I had lost faith in one person but gained it in countless others who had come to our aid when we needed it most. The betrayal had nearly broken me, but the response to it had healed more than just my son's heart. As Jason ran to retrieve a ball thrown too far, his laughter echoing in the yard, I knew that we would be okay. Better than okay. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most teach us the greatest lessons. I lost my trust in one person, but gained faith in humanity. And that is a trade I would make any day for my son's smile. Has someone close to you ever betrayed your trust? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming life's challenges. Share this video with someone who might need to be reminded that even in our darkest moments, help can come from unexpected places. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes our greatest struggles lead to our most beautiful transformations.